one at a time, and we'll get the job done. Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.
And the home of the Jets.
Mr. JetsCentral. I think you muted yourself, man. How'd you mute yourself? You muted yourself. What are we doing? This is what I get already from you.
So you muted me because you want to split the intro, and then when I went to go unmute it, I accidentally clicked it. But yeah, dude, it was good.
Not much, man. How you doing? How was your weekend?
It was good, man. It kind of, the free agency moves kind of slowed down for sure. I felt like kind of after that Mike Williams news, that high, everything just like the dust kind of settled a little bit. But I'm loving these moves that New York has made so far. But the only thing is, I still want to round out the roster, like backup offensive lineman. What's happening at slot wide receiver? Tyler Boyd's still out there. That could be interesting. Safety as well.
No, there's a lot to talk about, man. We got the Mike Williams move that happened after our last time we talked. We got Woody Johnson spoke, which I have some serious comments about. You got Joe Douglas, you got Saleh. But before we get started, I just want to thank everybody, including you, man, for all the support for my fundraiser. The support was overwhelming on social media all weekend long, and I raised probably close to $5,000. So just want to thank everybody for supporting. You helped me promote it too, which is really cool. So thank you for that. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Woody Johnson? Do you want to start with Joe Douglas, Saleh, or Mike wWilliams? I'll give you the choice where you want to start.
I guess let's just go in order. So Mike Williams up first.
Okay. So then my question to you this. At that point, he seemed like really good value because he was probably the best player available at that time. But then you hear Joe Douglas say yesterday that Mike Williams may not be ready for training camp. He may not be ready for the season. We don't know when he's going to be ready. Is that a concern for you where you're like, you know what? I like the player, but we need another guy to put right behind him, like a veteran guy, like you mentioned Boyd or something else?
For sure. I mean, I definitely don't want the Jets to be done. Douglas made some comments regarding Mike Williams, but also when talking about the offensive line, he said that he felt like he completed the offensive line, which I just disagree with.
Yep.
Because I don't want, like, if we think back to 2023, what was the downfall? It was players getting hurt at premium positions and then not having backup plans.
100%.
So these moves, Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, right? They're all great. Mike Williams. But if you don't have a backup plan, and literally all of these guys battled injuries last year, and then in the case of Tyron Smith and Mike Williams, battled injuries really throughout the course of, with Williams, pretty much every season outside of 2019. And then Tyron Smith, I want to say the last handful of seasons, last 4 or 5 seasons, he's missed some time. That, just common sense, that doesn't really add up to everybody 100% staying healthy, no questions asked. So, and I'm not saying that we ran out of time or anything. Obviously not. Donovan Smith is out there, Bakhtiari, right? A couple more wide outs, but at the end of the day, I don't feel like this is a complete roster.
Yeah, the wide receiver group, I think, is a work in progress. And I think I like Mike Williams, but the biggest concern is the same concern we had last year with Dwayne Brown was you want to see the guy develop chemistry with his teammates, with his quarterback, with the offensive coordinator. And if he's not going to miss most training camp, that's a problem. That to me it is. And you want to see your Jets offense firing on all cylinders week 1. I don't want to wait till week 7 or week 8 until he's in the, when he's fully healthy. So to me, it's like, if you get that, if you want to get Boyd, if you want to get Beckham, if you want to get somebody else and draft somebody, the more options, the merrier, dude. Like this is like, it's weird to me that everybody's giving Joe Douglas so much credit. Like, oh, slam dunk, great offseason, on to September. No, hell no. Because we still you need depth, legitimate depth to offset these little injury concerns that you have. Because at wide receiver, you have him with him coming back. Alan Lazard, what can you honestly expect from him? Brownlee and Gibson, nice stories, but what are they? You're one Garrett Wilson injury away from being like, we may have to panic a little bit. And I don't want to be in that spot. This is like your all-in year.
Yeah, for sure. You take a look at some of the great teams out there. If a player goes down, it's not the end of the world. The sky isn't falling.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when it comes to the New York Jets, this is kind of like one of the jokes I've been talking about. From a Madden perspective, the Jets are fine, right? Just flip injuries off. We have a bunch of great, a solid starting lineup. Yep. Tyron Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Mike Williams, all these household names, in my opinion. Not to mention the young guys, right? Garrett, Brees, Tippmann, AVT. Lots of names here. Lots of names on this offense. But like, and again, nobody wants to talk about it, right? Or be negative or try to, almost being like a negative Nancy. Nobody wants to do that, but we have to talk about it because last season ruined because of injuries and the failure to adapt, failure to add somebody else into the team in the offseason, add someone to the team during the season, whether that was a free agent out in the open market or potential trades. Right. So I got to keep on harping on it. I'm going to keep pounding on the table for this team to add depth.
Yep, me too.
Because, and look, it's one thing if we're talking about like Phillip Rivers was the quarterback, right? Somebody who never misses time. Every year he plays. If he's hurt, he'll battle through. I think he actually played through an ACL injury, if I'm not mistaken, 1 year. I believe it was actually in the playoffs or something. Anyway, we're not in that position, right? We got major positions here: left tackle, wide receiver 2, quarterback, guys that they battled injuries. And it's not like Madden where we're just signing a bunch of players and then they're all just fantastic and everybody has chemistry. We're going to need these guys to be taking a lot of reps in practice, in training camp, for them to, gel and kind of mesh as an offensive line together. I think Morgan Moses being a former Jet helps. Granted, it's a different coaching staff and whatnot, but AVT Tippmann, you got that familiarity there. But go ahead.
The thing is this, and I agree with you, but like, and I'm not trying to be negative. We're just trying to say that we like what they're doing, but it's a work in progress. You need more depth. We learned this last year, how one injury can derail things. Let's try to avoid that and maximize the potential of this team. So the offensive line, we gave Joe Douglas credit. Like, I like what we did with the offensive line. I like the moves, but there's risk. They have, Morgan Moses, great trade. Then you find out he had a pec surgery. So it's like, will he be ready for training camp? And Joe Douglas was smart yesterday to try to alleviate the concern, say, you know what? We expect everybody ready for training camp. That's a good way to silence all of us. Be like, you know what? Don't worry about it. We don't worry about it until the actual report, right? But that's a concern. So to me, it's like you mentioned Bakhtiari. I keep adding pieces, man. I know that Saleh mentioned he has faith in Carter Warren because he missed all of OTAs. He missed all of this, but he ended up playing, which is a great point. We don't really talk about that a lot, but still keep adding pieces to the puzzle, man, because you don't want that drop off. You don't want to be like, all right, we screwed the pooch here. We, guys out. We have no backup. So the offensive line is the biggest concern. You have Tippmann. I know that they said, AVT is now playing right guard. No surprise to anybody. But you want to see all 5 guys playing together, gelling as a unit. So there's no excuses for Keith Carter, no excuses for Hackett, and no excuses for Saleh.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the big thing here. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. You got to round out the roster, with the extra game added onto the schedule, not like specifically for this season, but as we all know, it's 18 weeks now. Man, the scheduling is weird with the Christmas games. I was reading today, I think somebody pointed out there's like a game during that week of Christmas, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
It's insane.
Which is just crazy to think about. Like, these guys, like, health matters. We can factor in the MetLife field, if that's playing a part. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's still a talking point. But I mean, you can take a look at a team like the Buffalo Bills, right? They were missing pieces, big pieces. Trey White hurt, Matt Milano hurt. But they have guys to come in and replace those players, and they don't miss a beat. They're still going far in the playoffs. They're, Cincinnati. Joe Burrow gets hurt, of all people. Joe Burrow gets hurt, but yet they're still managing to win games and stick around.
The Cleveland Browns
situation. Yeah, Cleveland. It's another great point. The Indianapolis Colts took the Texans literally right to that last game of the season. So it goes to show that if you add depth, if you spend, and I know it might be a little tedious for GMs because it's like, who wants to spend a ton of cash on just backup players that might not even see the field? I get it, but I would rather have the Jets be safe than sorry.
100%. Now, I guess we're kind of bouncing around a little bit, but there's a lot of things to talk about. So talk about the offensive line, and Saleh addressed Keith Carter yesterday, which I thought was fascinating, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit, where it's like there was obvious communication issues last year. The offensive line was a mess. They didn't adjust. They didn't do all kinds of things. I see your buddy talking trash. Right? I'll address Coach Saleh. So, just so you guys know, Ian loves when the Muppets are in here too. He likes talking to the Muppets. But he talked about Keith Carter saying, you know what? sometimes the message is lost in his tone, where he's fiery, he's animated, he's all loud, and whatever else. And sometimes players tune him out. And to me, it's like, well, then what in the hell are you doing, Saleh, if you see that and his message isn't getting through? This is why you can make a good case he'd been fired last year, because of how bad they were just based on incompetence. So do you think Saleh is going to be more hands-on this year and say, okay, listen, we've got to clean these issues up, because you have veteran offensive linemen now. These guys have, it's not like rookies. So you should expect better play. Tyron Smith's an all-time great. Morgan Moses, established guy, right? So do you think Saleh is more hands-on, and having a veteran like Morgan Moses and Smith makes it easier for him?
I mean, maybe I should say yes, right? Like that should be the answer.
Right.
If you're talking about like, would Andy Reid get involved? Would John Harbaugh get involved with, with decisions like this? Would McDermott, would like some of these great coaches? The answer is pretty much yes. But I felt like if that was the case, we would have seen it at least 1 point last year. But we just and it wasn't just offensive line problems. It was like pre-snap penalties really throughout the course of last season. You're just kind of waiting for the moment. Where is Saleh going to step in? When is he going to step in? It just never really felt like anything changed.
Nope.
As far as the culture was concerned, as far as the pre-snap game, or not the pre-snap, the pre-game planning, all that stuff was kind of the same from week to week. It kind of felt like we had the same offensive game plan no matter who we played. Mm-hmm. Which to me is a bit of a red flag. So we'll see if he gets involved. But, I mean, who knows? I would like to think that he's maybe looking at 2023, paying attention to the headlines and whatnot, and saying to himself, you know what? Like, I really dropped the ball in numerous areas here. I got to pick it up.
I think he's banking on Aaron Rodgers overcoming a lot of their deficiencies. And I also think that when they said that they were initially seeking a senior offensive consultant to kind of look over the offense, evaluate things, and Saleh's like, you know what? We don't think we need that. We're going to stay with what we have. It's almost like arrogant once again, but I think it's arrogant to the point where they're saying, you know what? Aaron Rodgers is back. And just like some of the players said last year, like he ran everything. He ran the show. Like what he said is what went. And that's going to be what's going to save everybody's jobs and make everything look smoother and make everything look better. And that's risky, man, because he is a little bit older and he is coming back from major injury. And you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket where it's like, you know what? At some point, the coaches got to do their jobs as well. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Robert Saleh to do that this year, because this is it. And this kind of transition to the thing where, for once, can this goddamn organization say playoffs are mandatory? Like, why is it so difficult? Like, you ask Woody Johnson, is a playoff mandate? Well, it's really winning's in the eye of the beholder. What in the hell does that mean? Like, seriously, like the standard here is mediocrity. The standard here is making excuses. The standard here is justifying losses. Once you act like you want to be a legitimate organization, say, you know what we did last year was unacceptable. It's unacceptable to be out of playoffs 13, 14 years now, right? Why is it so hard? Even Saleh saying, well, you know what? We really can't say if we don't make the playoffs, it's not necessarily a failure. Based on what? You've done nothing in your career here. The Jets have accomplished nothing. Why is it so hard to say, you know what? We have to make the playoffs now. I expect a lot more. Week in and week out. Not like Woody Johnson said, you know what? I just want to be really close in games. I want to have a chance to win in some games. Like, what? No. See, I want to expect more. Is that too much to ask, dude?
Well, it seems like, that's kind of the mindset that like a young rebuild, like that's the mindset I had when Saleh first took over.
Yeah.
Which was, hey, we have a lot of question marks. We're going to roll out a bunch of young players. Have a ton of cap space. We got a ton of draft picks, but all that stuff's coming in the future. But let's set the culture. Let's set the foundation now, year one, and let's just try to hang in games. And, if we win, great, but let's not, blow it up and freak out if we lose a couple games. Let's stay competitive. Let's, stay close. We don't have, the best roster compared to, other teams out there. So, it kind of reminds me of that feeling, because that's kind of, again, that's what I felt when Saleh first took over.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Just kind of stay competitive, stay close in games. But we're years removed from that, and we're pressed up against we're spending money on all these different players. We've added so many different first round picks since then. We've added so many free agents since then. We've completely swapped over the offensive staff, and there's still question marks there. Arguably, much worse.
Yep.
The numbers say it's worse. So yeah, I mean they have their work cut out for them for sure.
But they're
But
so worried about
I don't like that.
they're worried about perception. Like they want to be like they don't want to be like no. You have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, like that. One of the biggest names in the game. Like this is it. You guys parade yourselves all around last year on Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks. You have all this flash on social media, all this sizzle, and now you're walking it back a little bit. Well, no, absolutely not. You're not backing down. Don't be timid. Be demanding and expect more. And they should. And I hate like every time Woody Johnson talks, it's cringe. It's just like, just shut up, dude. Seriously, talk about the new uniforms, talk about the logo, talk about the World Cup coming here. When he talks about anything about football, it's embarrassing. So full circle. Now comes back to Zach Wilson talks where, at the NFL honors thing, Woody Johnson, his big ass mouth is like, you know what? We need a backup quarterback last year. We didn't have one, which automatically Zach Wilson didn't have a lot of trade value to begin with, but now he has even less. So then yesterday he's like, well, if we can't trade him, we'll keep him. So, Ian, I'm willing to bet you whatever you want that Zach Wilson will not be on the team this year. But I hate the way Woody Johnson talks about Zach Wilson because his trade value, I mean, what can we honestly expect? At this point, you got to figure the Jets are going to they're going to probably have to swap draft picks and give up a couple $1 million just to get rid of him because what? Nobody's going to want to pay $5 million for this kid.
Well, I mean, I think first we got to talk about the.
Can you tell I'm annoyed?
Say what?
Can you tell I'm annoyed? I can't take Woody Johnson, dude. He just drives me crazy.
Well, dude, what's interesting is we had the two reports come out, right? One from Rich Cimini saying that Zach Wilson's trade market is dwindling, it's drying up, it's shrinking and shrinking. And then we have Mike Florio come out, I think 1 or 2 days later, saying that there's multiple trade offers. The Jets have multiple trade offers on the table for Zach. But the thought is, or there's an idea suggesting that Woody Johnson is squatting on Zach Wilson, even though he publicly called him out at the whatever it was, the award show or the awards. And then Woody comes back with these comments. It's just a mess. Like I don't really know. I get it. He's the second overall pick and whatnot. He just didn't work out. But I mean, the amount of talk and conversation and debates about Zach Wilson this, Zach Wilson that. I think one point that not a lot of people are making is, what does Zach Wilson want? He probably wants nothing to do. He wants probably a fresh start with a new coaching staff, new players, and a new situation. Because he's taken a beating, right? Physically from the offensive line, mentally from the media. It's not to say that Zach isn't to blame here, because obviously there's a ton of blame to go on Zach for sure, but it's not just because he sucks. And that's the reason why the Jets are, missed the playoffs last year. It's not the only reason, right? Whether you like Zach or hate Zach, it's not the only reason. So yeah, I mean, all these different reports coming out surrounding Zach. At the end of the day, I don't believe he's going to be on the Jets in 2024, especially because the scouting department, all the coaches, they're doing so much homework on all these young quarterbacks. The Jets have literally met with Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. They've personally scouted Bo Nix, personally scouted Michael Pratt today. They're going to be meeting with Travis from Florida State. There's been a little bit of buzz about maybe Keaton Slovis from BYU. Are the Jets really doing all this work just to have, just to turn a blind eye to it? Like, no, probably not. So I don't think Wilson's going to be here. Now,
do you think it's going to be a trade where the Jets got to throw some money in to make a deal done? Like they say, like they give up a sixth to get a fifth and they throw in $2 million? Or do you see it where it's just like, they're like, you know what? It's an outright release. I honestly think at the end of last year, they kind of made a deal with him. Like he came back and played, and then he didn't return the rest of the season. They kind of said, you know what? You're going to be on your way. It's best for both sides. They want him gone. He wants to be gone. So they got to find a way to do it. Do you think they kind of find a way to make some kind of trade where they can kind of save face a little bit? Or do you think it's going to be an outright release where like, you know what? We can't get, because teams know the spot the Jets are in. Teams know the Jets are desperate. It's, the markets, there is no market for them.
Well, according to the report, we have multiple trade offers. So, multiple options here. But I think for me, it'll probably end up being one of those weird swaps. I think the trade's going to come after the draft.
I think so too.
because you kind of feel like there's always the team that misses out on the quarterback that they want. Not talking about in round 1, but if somebody shoots up in round 5 and you're kind of thinking, oh, we got a young quarterback here, whoever it may be, and we miss out on him. Now we end the draft and we don't have a young quarterback. Let's flip a 2025 or a 2026 round, 7th rounder to the Jets, and we get like a pick swap. We go get Wilson for a year. They could throw in a couple $1,000,000, like you said. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of, again, like the compensation won't be great no matter what. If he gets released, like I just feel like it's, I don't know. It's not like we're talking about getting a 2nd round pick here.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's so much weight. There's so many conversations and reports coming out about the Zach Wilson trade compensation that I don't really feel like it matters all that much, to be honest. Like, Wilson probably wants to leave. The Jets probably want to move forward without him. Then let's just make it happen.
And I think Joe Douglas and Woody Johnson want to avoid egg on their face by releasing him. Like the Jets for the number 2 overall pick couldn't even get it. Like, they couldn't even get it. They couldn't even trade and they had to release him. That's the ultimate kick in the ass. Now, the one thing you're seeing a lot of people today, because Zach has his fan base within this fan base that's just, they're loyal as all hell. And they're like, why not just keep him as a very good number 3? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to see that. But I think if you talked about, would you rather draft somebody like a young project, the kid from Florida State or wherever, or would you rather say, get another young, unproven veteran as your number 3, or keep Zach? To me, Zach is the last of all my options. Where would you rather go for your quarterback 3 for this team?
Well, I mean, again, I don't think Zach wants to be the QB3 for this team.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So, do the Jets want to bring him back after everything that happened last year? All the stories, all the media, the benching, then bringing it back, then the injury, all these different things, right? Not to mention what happened in 2022. It just seems like the marriage is over. And the Jets, because that's the team, they have to rip the Band-Aid off in one way or another. Personally, though, I think I would be fine selecting a young quarterback late. The only issue is, if the staff doesn't come back for whatever reason, or they decide to move on from Hackett, then you have, a young quarterback learning a brand new offense in year 2. And, that's not really the best setup moving forward.
Now, how high in the draft would you go? What round would be the highest you would go to draft a quarterback? 4th round? Or would you say even lower than that?
I got to be honest.
I know.
I think if one falls to the Jets at 10, I would consider it.
You've got it. Come on, man. 10? I would be texting you all night. You wouldn't sleep.
All right, let's just, I'm not saying, oh, we have to go get this guy, or, oh, we need to draft a quarterback at 10. I'm just saying if one falls and I like the prospect, it would enter my mind. Hey, is he on the board? Sure. Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. If Jaden Daniels was on the board at 10, you're just not even going to think about it. No, I don't care. It's a quarterback. We're not worried about it.
Well, if
Drake May's there,
if they're there at 10, I'd be like, this is the perfect opportunity to trade back. That's the way I'd look at it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because to me, it's where we're at right now with this team. It's you have a 2-year window to win, or then you're going to be screwed. Yeah, this is Ian's just trying to instigate. He would not have said this last week. He's trying to instigate with me right now. But I would just say this is a great chance to trade back. You need to get impact playmakers now. You can imagine Aaron Rodgers' reaction. They take him at 10. What? This is the same thing happened in Green Bay. But it's just assuming nobody drops. Say you go.
Well, Rod, to cut you off real quick, and my I apologize for doing that.
Dude.
Rodgers is 40, and he's coming off an Achilles. Whereas when the Packers selected Love, I believe he was coming off an MVP season.
Yep.
So a bit, and he was, obviously whatever it was, 3-4 years younger, late 30s. Bit of a different situation. He was playing at such a high level, not many question marks at all. Everybody knew Rodgers was the guy. But, it kind of just seems like Rodgers is more involved with the team, with the Jets, as opposed to Green Bay, where it kind of felt like it was about Rodgers and his buddies.
That's a fair point.
He's, interested in buying ownership in the, in the team and whatnot, back when that whole story came out when the Jets first got him.
Yep.
Damn, that's crazy. That's nuts. But I mean, I think it's kind of just I would think it's foolish. Again, I'm not saying we need to, or if a quarterback's there, he would be the favorite. But I do feel like it's foolish for a general manager of an NFL football team to enter the draft with blinders on, or
Fair.
or unwritten restrictions placed on them because of X, Y, and Z. Right? If May's on the board and and Douglas likes Bowers more, Douglas likes whoever it is, whatever prospect more, then you just take that prospect.
Yeah.
But if May is your third best player in the draft and you're at 10 and he falls, I don't want Douglas to be like handcuffed again by like unwritten rules. Well, he's a quarterback, even though we
Well,
love him.
is it being handcuffed or is being what his need is now? His need is to win now. Is he going to be willing to draft a quarterback knowing that, you know what? I may not see that kid play next year because I'm not going to be here if I don't win 10 or 11 games. Like, I'm wondering the Jets' mindset is like, I understand what you're saying. And listen, you want to have an eye towards the future because Aaron Rodgers could be a year away from being gone and Tyrod's our quarterback. But would Joe Douglas even be willing to do that, knowing that they have a pressing need at wide receiver? You need desperate need offensive line help. You need all these different pieces. You don't have a second round pick, right? So it's
Yeah.
do they even have the ability to do that? I know they have draft flexibility now based on free agency, but do they even have the capability to do that and take that chance with the needs that they have?
Well, again, I think again, like just from my perspective, if I was in Joe Douglas's shoes, I would consider. I'm not necessarily saying that I would take that quarterback,
Right.
but I'm just saying it would enter my mind. Hey, here's a really good player
Yeah.
that was supposed to go a lot earlier, who just so happens to be on the board at spot number 10. We don't really have a long-term option. We really love him. Okay, let's think about it. Let's discuss. Let's meet with Hackett. Let's meet with Saleh. Have those war room meetings. I mean, quite frankly, they should be going through these scenarios now, a month before the draft, when things aren't set in stone. But all I'm saying is, don't enter the draft closed-minded like that, because you never know what's going to happen. Because you don't want to be in an unforeseen situation on draft night because the team didn't do due diligence leading up to the draft. Like, oh, we don't need, a young quarterback.
No,
Okay, well,
listen.
what happens if the second best one's on the board? Dude, we were getting mock drafts the day before last year's draft saying that Will Levis was going to be a top 10 pick
It's true.
to the Titans. No, not to the Titans. Around that 7-8 mark.
Yep.
He ends up going in round 2.
Yep.
So anything could happen. Like, I know a lot of the draft picks get like leaked and stuff like that, like before, like as soon as they come in and stuff like that. Like I've seen, people tweet those out, and there's pretty big, like the day of the draft, you get those reports coming out like, oh, such and such, Trevor Lawrence is going 1 to
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Baker Mayfield, that whole thing came out, the day of the draft. All I'm saying is just enter the draft with an open mind and consider all your options. But I think I'm with you. I would probably opt to trade down if a top quarterback is
Yep.
there. But it's not to say, oh, Drake May's here. We're on the clock. Drake May's here. We're just gonna like ignore it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Listen, I get what you're saying. To me, it's like I'm like that's probably one of the only positions I wouldn't go after. But if you get in the third or fourth round, I get a little more bold. Like, you know what? This is value here where it's like I would be willing to do that. But I would trade back if anything. But like,
Yeah.
what would be like, say the first round doesn't happen? Would you fourth round start getting more looking at quarterbacks? You still even wait later than that?
I mean, it's interesting because the Jets don't have a third, but we have the 2/4.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if you love one, I would consider it in round 4.
Right. Yeah, me too.
I guess the later and later you push it, round 5, round 6, you can always say like the probability, the chances of, that player working out is kind of slim. But for me, I would probably say round 4, because you don't want to, come back in round 3 and take one when you only have 2 picks in like the top 100, and one of them is a quarterback that's going to be a third stringer. So again, I just don't want Douglas to overthink it. Right?
No.
Come up with his big board, come up with his quarterback rankings, figure out what Hackett wants in a QB. Saleh doesn't really have much input offensively, so from that standpoint, you're going to have a like a pretty good understanding of what quarterback you want as an organization.
Yeah.
If that player, say he's the 114th best player on Douglas's big board, and he's the 6th quarterback or the 7th quarterback, and we're sitting there right around that mark, and he's there, and we feel like we did a pretty good job, in the early parts of the draft, then I really don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I think quarterback will be taken, but I think much later. Now, with the signing of Mike Williams, 1-year deal, at pick number 10, I'm thinking wide receiver. I know all the Bowers arguments. We'll get to that later on. But if you're looking at pick 10, what receiver do you think would be the perfect complement to have with Wilson and Williams?
The perfect realistically speaking?
Yeah.
I would say Neighbors, but I don't think he's going to be there at 10. Dude, I'll say this, man. I think Brian Thomas is my third favorite receiver in the draft. I think I like Brian Thomas. Like, probably got Harrison 1, Neighbors 2, Thomas 3. That's kind of my outlook on it. But again, dude, even if Mike Williams balls out for the Jets, he's only on the 1-year contract. So I don't want Douglas making decisions like this.
Yeah.
Based off of just 2024. We don't need a wide receiver because we have Mike Williams and Garrett Wilson. But it's like, okay, what if Williams gets hurt? What if Wilson gets hurt? What happens next year if Williams does well and you can't bring him back? I want to, and same argument can be made for literally left and right tackle.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's where you like everybody has their favorite wide receiver. People like Odunze, and then you have the Bowers thing where it's like, the Bowers arguments are crazy at this point, where it's like generational talent, game-breaking talent, elite playmaker. He's gonna, he's got flaws, he's got this, he's gonna be overrated. You can get him later on. Where do you fall on Bowers? Is he like highly considered at number 10? Or you're like, you know what? If we trade back, then I consider him.
Good question. I think Douglas probably loves him
because of last year with the Mayor things.
Yeah. But with that said. And also, something else that kind of is, it's kind of had me thinking about it. And it didn't even click in my head until a couple nights ago. But Dalton Kincaid was on the board as well at draft.
Yep.
So Douglas actually had Michael Mayer rated above Dalton Kincaid, and Kincaid was like the consensus number 1 tight end in the class, according to a lot of people. And obviously, the same with the Buffalo Bills because they ended up selecting Kincaid. And Mayer ends up going in round 2. So that was just kind of like a weird, like little wrinkle. And Mayer definitely had better blocking abilities than Kincaid coming out as a prospect. Kincaid was more of the pass catcher.
Yep.
So maybe it's not as set in stone, if you will, that Douglas like loves Bowers. I'm sure he, probably loves him, but I don't know that to be a fact. But I think for me, it's tough because you find tight ends in the mid rounds that can contribute immediately. Laporta was a 2nd round pick. Mark Andrews was a mid round pick for Baltimore. Like you can go down the list of Kittle round 2, Kelsey I believe round 2, round 3, round 2. Like you don't have to draft a you don't have to draft a tight end in the top 10 for him to like work out. Now it's not to say that Bowers isn't worth a top 15 pick or anything like that, but I think for me I would opt more so towards offensive line. That's still in my head like the number one need. Now if we sign a bunch of depth pieces, then maybe I don't know. But it's tough. I think this is kind of, even though it's tough and it's cool for us to kind of talk about and go back and forth and try to figure out the best plan, the beauty of it is we can actually go in a bunch of different directions and get better as a team. Fashanu, Fuaga, Bowers, Odunze, Neighbors, if he falls, who knows, Brian Thomas. Like there's so many players that you take them and you put them on the Jets right now. We are a much better football team.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting to see what value that Hackett and Rodgers put on the tight end position. Like, what value do they put on the tight end position, the wide receiver position, or the offensive line, which is like, you like our offensive line now, 3 new starters, but injury concerns and older. So if these tackles fall there, like if you have Fashanu or which I don't think either one are going to be there at that point, but like if they're there, to me, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, you know what? You get your left tackle for the next God knows how many years. You get him. He learns from Tyron Smith, which is incredible. You can't get a better mentor than that. So it's like, to me, that's the move to make. And then you can go with a deep wide receiver class. You go in the third round and get your receiver, whatever else. But how high do you value these guys, the offensive linemen? And where's your drop off? Where you're like, you know what? After these two, I go somewhere else. Like, is it like you go to Fuaga? Like, how many linemen do you have at that you would take at number 10?
It's tough. So Alt for sure. Fashanu I would take. Fuaga I would take. There's a bunch of guys, dude, like I love in this class, but I wouldn't necessarily take them at 10 because you could probably just shoot down to 15 and select them. Shoot down into like the early 20s. Like I love Jordan Morgan from Arizona. Like that dude's like highly decorated coming out of Zona. I mean, I think his size, he projects well, pass blocking, run blocking. I feel like he's a balanced player. Amarius Mims is hard to like ignore.
Yeah.
You know, the pure size of Mims is crazy from Georgia. I think Tyler Guyton is interesting, who dominated the Senior Bowl at right tackle. Again, not necessarily a 10, but you know, just looking at offensive linemen that I feel like could be long-term fits here for this Jet squad. Fashanu from Washington, I think, is a versatile player. I think the easy comp, the one that everybody just jumps to, is AVT because of, you know, the guard and tackle, you know, the ability to play both positions.
Yep.
So I think at the end of the day, the Jets really can't go wrong with offensive line. And I got to be honest, I think if I was Joe Douglas and the board kind of plays out like a bunch of these different mock drafts do, then Fashanu would probably be my favorite at 10 over Bowers, over Fuaga, because Fashanu's one flaw that everybody talks about is that he might not be 100% ready to play right now. Maybe some time on the bench would do him well.
Yep.
Well, the Jets are actually the perfect team to do that because they have a great person in Tyron Smith, like you mentioned, who gets hurt a lot. So Fashanu actually could see the field midway late into the year. And then, of course, the contract length, which is 1 year. So even if Tyron Smith balls out, has a great season, well, that means Fashanu just sat a year on the bench, learning behind a fantastic left tackle. And there's not this need to pay Tyron Smith whatever, you know, if his asking price goes up. You have your guy, boom, you could just plug him in. So I think Fashanu for me is still that guy. Even dude, honestly, even if we did not have Tyron Smith, and we had whoever, Bakhtiari, Donovan Smith, I think Fashanu for me, and I know he's not for everybody, but for me, I think he's a really, really good prospect.
Now, are there any players that you would be willing to trade up for, even if it's just say 3 spots, go up to 7? Like I see a lot of trade for Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm like, I'm not going up to 5. Like you can't like. I don't think the Jets are in a spot to mortgage all these picks to get one player. I think they have a lot of holes and they got to address a lot of other needs and depth and just overall talent. But is there anybody that you say, you know what, I'd be willing to move up 3 spots for him or 2 spots for him if they're still there?
Again, realistically speaking, it's hard to say Joe Walls.
Yeah.
Right? Because what are you going to do? Jump with the Titans that are like the favorite to take him? You know, jump to 6 with the Giants, but the Giants could take him. The Giants really need a wide receiver. Like it's tough to kind of, you know, do like the realistic game, especially too with Minnesota trying to creep up for a quarterback, which would then slot everybody down a peg. So the Jets, I mean, let's be honest. Like at the end of the season, nobody had McCarthy as a top 10 pick.
Yep.
Nobody. So now that he's being talked about going at whatever 5 and with trade up, or somebody wants to move up for McCarthy, that's fantastic because the way it works out for the Jets is just pushing one. If you take one from the bottom and you put them up towards the top, that pushes everybody down.
Yep.
And luckily for us, it's a quarterback.
Yeah.
So we can get the next best wide receiver, the next best offensive lineman. So I think, again, the silver lining here, we can literally go in so many different directions, and we're going to be walking away on draft night saying, hey, we got a stud here. We got an upgrade. We got a short and long-term building block. I really love the.
I like how hairless Elmo distracts you.
Yeah, but I'm reading here too. McCarthy's odds have risen.
Yep.
To shoot up to number 2. Yeah, I saw that like 30 minutes before we started the stream. That's crazy, man. It's insane.
Yep. So now, based on all this, I like the flexibility too. There's a lot of players, a lot of different what ifs and all that stuff. An interesting thing was Jadeveon Clowney visit, which Joe Douglas said went great. With the departure of Huff was very annoying, but Clowney coming off a monster season, he loves 1-year deals. He's not going to come cheap. Do you think the Jets spend big on him to bring him here for that 1-year deal to be that extra piece in the bring him in here? He's very good against the run. Good, get a good pass rusher, take some pressure off Will McDonald, I think, which is probably pretty important as well. Do you think they spend big to bring him in here, or do they say, you know what, he's probably going to go to the highest bidder? Do they even get in a bidding war for him?
Yeah, I think Oscar, real quick. I love both players, Turner and Latu. I think both of those guys are great, but I don't see the Jets doing it just because of we're 5 deep at the position. But I think this is, the classic Douglas situation where he's offered a contract. It is what it is. There's not really any budging from there.
Nope.
And it's up to Clowney, the veteran coming off a great season. Do I take this?
Yeah.
And let me go, see what else is out there. And then maybe I'll come back to that offer if I can't find any better situation or more money or whatever the case is, whatever he's, looking for. But I mean, I think Clowney's going to get anywhere from 6 to 13 mil a year
money
on a cheap one or not cheap, but a 1-year deal. Yeah.
Yep. Now, I agree too. I think he's gonna get pretty good money coming off that year. Maybe playing with the Jets and Rodgers, but there's rumors that the Ravens want him back too, which is already he could just stay where he was. A couple of the positions that Joe Douglas talked about, which completely agree with, was they're not done at running back and not done at safety. Running back we talked about last week, and Cordell Patterson got signed today. It still pisses me off because I like Patterson. He went to the Steelers, I think 2 years cheap too, like $6 million. Are there any running backs still available that you're interested in? Or do you say, you know what, I'm not worried about that. We can just draft a kid, Izzy, Brees, and just go from there?
Dude, I like Zeke. I think Zeke would be, I think he'd be an awesome fit for, really he'd provide a different skill set to Brees Hall, which I think is important. I think short yardage situations, we don't really have that bruiser, that consistent bruiser that can go 17 games. You look at what he can do in the pass blocking game, out of the shotgun for Rodgers, that could be a nice addition there. And I don't think Zeke would cost a whole lot. So, I know people are talking about J.K. Dobbins and whatnot, but I think Zeke could make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Dobbins is interesting because he rehabbed with Rodgers. So, you figure him and Aaron Rodgers got a good relationship. He's got a lot of ability coming off the ACL, though. It's all right, you don't know what you're going to get. It's the kind of same thing as Mike Williams. What are you going to get? How long is it taking him to get back? Will he be healthy? But I think I'd rather bring in a veteran that's been there, done that, than trust a rookie, and then Izzy to back up Brees. That's a lot of just, you want, like you said, you want a power back, an experienced guy, a good pass protector as well. Safety is interesting. I'm surprised Ashton Davis isn't back here, to be honest with you. Him and Justin Hardy, to be honest. I thought they'd both be back by now, but how big of a market could Davis have? I mean, is he going to get that much money anywhere else?
I don't think so, dude, just because of the amount of safeties that are still out there. I mean, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Justin Simmons, Micah Hyde. There's a lot of safeties still out in the open market that are pretty good. So I think, Whitehead's actually back in Tampa.
He went back to Tampa. Yep.
So he's off the board, but I think Davis is probably going to be one of those early summer signings.
Yeah, him and Hardy, because Justin Hardy was your captain on special teams. I thought he had. I mean, how much money could he possibly want? I'm just surprised they're both not back. Other than that, you look at the overall team. It's you see, it's depth pieces. I'm curious to see what happens at Bakhtiari. To be honest with you, I just get the feeling he's going to come here, but it's just you wonder if teams are going to go quiet now and wait till the draft and say, okay, what are we going to get in the draft? And then after that, there's another flurry of free agent signings. Do you think the kind of market gets quiet now for a little while?
I do. I think it's kind of everybody just kind of hunkers down and just prepares for the draft. Yeah. And the free agent signings that we see are just going to be the offers that have been out there for a week or two. Maybe, probably the Patterson signing, or if the Jets sign Clowney, that offer's already out there. It's just up to the player to decide. Yeah. The player though that I'm still really interested in is Tyler Boyd, and Michael. Michael actually just pointed that out. Yeah, should the Jets sign Tyler Boyd? What's kind of your take on Tyler?
We've been talking about him for 2 months now. I wanted him before Mike Williams. Why not? The more the merrier, dude. You can't have enough talent here. And that's a guy that's going to be, you get 2-3-year contract. It's going to be more than a 1-year deal. It'll probably be at least a 3-year contract, you would think, right?
I think at this point, though, it might be a little lower.
Think so?
Because I feel like, it's looking like Pittsburgh has kind of gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
They signed Quez Walker, Cordell Patterson too. I mean, they're spending money. They just brought in, Pat Queen
Patterson.
at linebacker. Like, they're spending money. Russ Fields. It's tough. I mean, I guess if it seriously just comes down to the financial aspect, Carolina, I think Boyd would be a great fit there. Somebody who can separate, somebody who can get open over the middle of the field to work with Canales and the new, offensive staff, getting Bryce Young a weapon.
Yep.
But dude, I would freaking love Tyler Boyd, man.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Watkins.
Yep. Yeah, I'm shocked that he's still out there, to be honest with you. I'm wondering if he overvalued himself a little bit, where he's asking for more than he's just overpriced himself a little bit. And now it's going to be like teams may wait. Like, you know what? We know what your price is. We'll see if we can draft somebody that's going to be a lot cheaper than you and go to a much different direction. He could be waiting around, him, Beckham, all these guys. So are there any like other free agents out there that you're kind of really interested in that are kind of just waiting to see what happens to them? Like, that they could be a great fit for the Jets?
I mean, Tyler Boyd, and I think, also Justin Hardy, Ashton Davis, kind of those guys. I feel like Quandre Diggs is just such a good fit for the solid defense.
Yeah.
A proven veteran, a high defensive IQ type of player. Obviously, he's seen a lot of football. I just don't think the Jets will do it just because, just based off of price.
Do you think they've done enough to stop the run? Do you think they have enough pieces to stop the run? I don't know. You lost Woods, you lost Jefferson, you brought in Kinlaw, you brought in the other dude from Arizona. I mean, is that enough? Thomas is back.
I think they probably should add one more piece.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not like a big time addition. So to answer your question, what has Quez done? I'm not saying like that the Steelers landed some like top receiver here or anything. I'm just saying that if the Steelers wanted Tyler Boyd as like or had him as a top priority, I don't think they would be dishing out money at different players. I think they would maybe be more inclined to get that done. So supposedly Fotu's coming off a solid season for Arizona.
Yep.
We all know Ulbrich and Saleh do seem to maximize the talents on the D-line, so we'll see what happens.
The Corey Davis situation is interesting because he apparently wants to come out of retirement. The Jets let him free, and it appears like you would think that he would kind of want to play with Aaron Rodgers. He already knows the offense. He knows everybody in the building, but now there's already rumblings like, maybe he wants to go to Tennessee, maybe he wants to go somewhere else. And it's kind of like, I don't know. If he goes somewhere else, it's going to kind of bother me. Almost like it seems like an indictment on the Jets. Like, how would you be if you went back to Tennessee? Would it bother you at all or no?
Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we don't know the exact reason why Corey Davis literally retired.
Yeah.
It's not like he sat out or held out or, oh yeah, I plan on coming back. Like, he straight up retired. Because of that, just naturally, I just feel like because we don't know the specifics.
Right.
I don't want to speculate on that. We don't know what happened. We don't know what he was going through. But beyond that, just judging him as a player, like numbers alone, right? Never eclipsed over 40 catches in a season with us. Had some drop problems, had some injury problems. He was owed over $10 million for the season. That's a lot of money to, give to somebody who, and granted, he'd be, a nice addition to the team now, but, I think we would be fine with Mike Williams and even Alan Lazard too. They all kind of have a similar, I feel like, role within the offense.
Good comment here. My thing is this: where's the all-in move? I get the need an offensive line, but the bigger need and most immediate impact would be a wide receiver. Mike Williams won't be 100% to start the year, which is a legit concern. Go trade future assets for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, first off, I would freaking love that. Marvin Harrison is like that dude, like so much fun to watch. I mean, he would have been a top 10 pick as a sophomore out of Ohio State. But the only issue, who are you trading up with to go get Marvin? Arizona at 4, who desperately needs a wide receiver. They're, I guess they have Michael Wilson, who's a young player, but to me, you got to go give Kyler a weapon. Like, and Marvin Harrison sitting there at 4, you got to swing the bat there.
Yeah.
And then at 5, the Chargers, who just got rid of Mike Williams, who just got rid of Keenan Allen.
Yeah, they
I mean,
desperately.
Justin Herbert's probably looking at the Chargers saying, like, dude, like,
Yep.
what are we doing here? Like, I would like to retain some wide receiver talent, although Palmer and Johnson are pretty good. But, I think if Harrison is on the board, if somehow he slips past the Cardinals at 4 and he's on the board for LA at 5, they're probably like, man, we get the best wide receiver in the class at spot number 5. Just so happens it's a massive need for us because we just cut 2 of our, consistent starters. So it's tough. And then I feel like from that point, does he get past Arizona? Does he get past LA? Does he get past, the Giants? I mean, the Giants really need help at wide receiver too. So it's just like, where's the sweet spot to trade up? That's the only issue with Harrison.
Yeah, I don't think it happens. But I mean, I don't think it happens at all. But I mean, in terms of the big all-in move, that may happen like after the draft in June sometime with some surprise cuts or maybe some kind of move there. I think the Jets are going to want to make a splash. I don't think it's going to be Clowney, but that big power move could still happen right later on.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only thing is we're now talking about 2025 picks.
Yep.
After the draft, obviously.
Yep.
But supposedly a report just came out saying that the Bengals are starting to listen to offers for T. Higgins now, which is interesting.
Yep.
Because I freaking love T. Higgins, and that is the type of splash move that I feel like would check that box. And then it also kind of seems like Ayuk is getting a little weird.
Yeah, it is.
The whole situation's kind of getting a little gray. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Especially like with Woody Johnson now, they want to sell tickets. They want the hype around their team. Right now, the fans are content with free agency. I think it's like everybody's like, all right, B+. We understand what you're doing. We feel comfortable. Aaron Rodgers coming back. But that big selling point, that big splash that gets everybody excited, T. Higgins definitely does that. Tyler Boyd would excite me, to be honest with you. I think that'd be a great move too. But I think something else is going to happen. I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that, well, I mean, I guess you could also push back and still say, well, if the Jets go out and make a splash move, how are we going to afford the depth pieces? So
you got to be creative, man. You got to sell your soul, man. We only got 2 years of Rodgers. You got to sell your soul a little bit. Because the one thing Joe Douglas has done so far, we got a tremendous amount of flexibility with the cap space. All these contracts have been responsible. He didn't really overpay. It's all incentive laden. You have room to do something. You really want to do something. And if you got a mortgage a year from now, who cares? Like, they don't really care. You know what I mean? If they keep kicking the can down the curb a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm desperate.
I just don't like the approach, like naturally speaking. That's
where we're at, though. Unfortunately, we don't really have like. You figure if you want to maximize Aaron Rodgers 2 years here, assuming it's 2 years, you got to make moves like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the position that the Jets they're kind of in.
All right, here's an offer for you. Offer the Bengals pick 10 and 72 for Higgins and pick 18.
Oh my God, yes, 100%.
Armand, you're sold. We'll do it.
100%. I'm doing that.
Oscar the Grouch wants a good linebacker signing to add to the room.
Yeah, Quincy, CJ holding it down, but
Saleh likes Sherwood a lot.
Yeah, he always kind of brings him up when he can.
Yep. Let's see what else. If you guys got a couple more questions, Ian's answering all the questions tonight. This is the guy. This is the expert. I'm just the interviewer. But so the one thing we get a lot of is like, how do you grade the free agency? And I'm like, I think it was for what they were, the spot that they were in and the holes they had. I thought Joe Douglas was creative. He got fairly good value with a decent amount of risk associated to it. Like, how would you grade his free agency, like this class so far?
It's interesting, man, because it's like, as a Jet fan, I really like it. I think we really needed a left tackle who can go out and play and be a starter. We got that. Yep. Oh, we really need help at right tackle. We really need a veteran leader. Oh, we got that. We cut Laken Tomlinson. Okay, we now have to figure out left guard, a major position of need. We figured it out and made that happen. Yep. We needed a wide receiver too, Mike Williams, so forth and so on, right? Yep. But what's interesting is, like, so I was talking to my brother who's not a Jets fan, talking to a couple other buddies who aren't, they don't follow the Jets, Lions, Bills, a couple other fans, Bucks. They're all like, dude, we're not feeling the Jets moves at all. because it's like they always say the same thing. Like, wasn't the Jets' problem last year injuries? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, you guys just signed a bunch of injury-prone players.
Yeah.
Like, is everybody like?
Yep.
Is there just going to be like a magic like bounce back and everybody's going to be healthy for next season? And then it's just like, true. I guess you have a point. Which again, don't mean to sound like a broken record, but depth.
And that's the whole thing. It's like, as a fan, it's so easy to be like, this ain't going to work. That's not going to work, and have the concerns. But you try to embrace positivity. Like, maybe the Jets, the football gods are going to bless us fine. Like, we're not going to have like an offensive line that stays healthy for once. Like, you got to kind of hope for that, because if they stay healthy, they're pretty good, man. It's a pretty good group. Hopefully Tippmann, keeps emerging. AVT stays healthy. And that's a guy that we don't even talk about him back-to-back years getting hurt. But you just got to hope it stays that way. And then the other thing too is just it comes down to coaching. Like, it comes down to, like, a lot of times your offensive coordinator can help you out, or your quarterback can help you out. I don't have any faith in Hackett, so I'm really banking on Rodgers to kind of do a lot of things for him. That's all you can really do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't want to be because like it really seemed like that, once the Rodgers injury happened last year, the Jets mailed it in.
Yep.
You had no answers. We couldn't figure out, we couldn't navigate the waters of the NFL without Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers is one thing, but we had a bunch of injuries on the offensive line.
Yep.
If our offensive line was a top 10 unit, top 15 unit, I think the offense would have looked a lot better. Maybe not by a ton, but we probably wouldn't have looked, horrific.
So the question is, what about signing Mekhi Becton as a swing tackle? Now, Becton seemed to have a great relationship with Rodgers. They seem to really like each other a lot and got along well. I think he probably expected a big market or a decent market in free agency. I think he visited the Bengals so far. I'm not sure where else he's visited. What do you think about? Do you think he'd even want to come back here? Or he's kind of over it.
I think, yeah. Well, first off, I don't think it would be a horrible idea to bring him back as like a depth option. If he's healthy and wants to be here. But that's the thing. I don't know if Becton wants to be here. And as far as him playing a swing tackle, I would just like Becton to stick on one side.
Yeah.
Probably backup left tackle, because I think that's maybe been a part of the injury. It's just constantly going back and forth, whether it's in camp or games or what have you. So yeah, it's kind of my thoughts on that.
I think the way they handled him probably pissed him off a little bit, and where he's kind of like, what? He was a good soldier towards the end. He was versatile. I think he wanted to prove that he can play, all 17 games. But now he's like, what? He wants, like, kind of like Zach, change the scenery. We can just resurrect his career a little bit and move on. I don't think he signed with the Bengals. He visited the Bengals. I don't think he signed with them though, right?
Yeah, so he visited, and then the Bengals signed Trent Brown.
Trent Brown, right?
Instead, so I think Brown's going to be the starting right tackle.
So Becton will be really interesting to see what he gets. Other than that, we covered a lot, man. We covered all the Mike Williams stuff, all the press conferences. Now from here on out, it's pretty much all draft stuff. I think it's going to be, how you rank your players and what value you put on them as it gets closer. The rumors are going to be going like wild now because, like, I said what I said. Donovan Smith is still out there too, which he said he wanted to play for the Jets.
Yeah.
But I think he's probably going to be an after draft probably guy at this point, right?
I think a lot of these guys are going to be like a summer, like cheap 1-year summer signings, kind of like Morgan Moses when we initially brought him in.
Yeah. So if you guys have any quick questions you want to add to it real quick, and then we could wrap this up. And then I think starting next week, we can be all draft talk, man. I think free agency's kind of done. We got to start sharing our rankings and kind of do our own mock drafts and kind of share them out here and get the chats' opinion, what they want to, what they think.
Yeah, I think one thing we can do, I was thinking, is like a live mock draft, doing like one of the machine simulators.
That's a good idea.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, because the whole Bowers offensive line argument's crazy. Like, I can't even go on Twitter anymore. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I can't even. It's just like, it's exhausting. Everybody's takes on him. It's interesting, but we'll see how it plays out. And then the rumors gonna be crazy. Like, Jets are gonna show interest. Everybody's gonna overreact to that. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. All right, we wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining us. We're live pretty much every Tuesday now, right? We're pretty much doing Tuesdays. So it's either here. You guys all know JetsCentral, Ian, but if you don't, you know where he's at. So we're either here or there every Tuesday talking Jets somehow about something.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Whether it's Monday or Tuesday, I think, yeah, like you said, we've been doing Tuesdays as of late, but yeah, no, always look forward to it. I always have a good time.
And you enjoy the Muppet supporters too. Like you
I do. I didn't know really where it came from because I haven't really gone done like a ton of, because the podcast, we typically film the videos and then we do the audio for you. But I definitely want to be switching that up soon.
Yep.
And I would just see the Muppet names and I would be, but multiple. And I'm like, oh man, where
You have
I
no
wonder,
idea.
like, I need the lore, the backstory.
But now what you're going to see is as like we get closer to like the draft or the season, the Muppets increase. There's like 5 of them that come on. Of course, man. We'll get everybody together. It just kind of just winging along as the offseason. But yeah, and then we get players. We had like CJ Mosley and Garrett Wilson. We get all kinds of players here. The chat's a whole different animal here, man. It's different. It's definitely unique.
Yeah, I saw Ashton Davis in the chat before. We got Saleh in the chat. Let's go.
Okay. One last question, if I may, not Jets related, but Tyson, how do you think Mike Tyson looks? I think he looks ferocious. He looks powerful. I think it comes down to his gas tank. He's probably got 2 good rounds in him, and after that, look out, because he's 57 years old. But he's hammering the pads. I mean, he's a scary man. But he's also 57 years old. So I think it comes down to his gas tank, man. It's just how your stamina you wear out a little bit. But we're all gonna buy it. If you have Netflix, you can watch it. But everybody's gonna watch it. It's a must watch. So
when's the fight?
I think it's still I think a ways away. Oh wait, here you go.
In summer.
We can talk about this. The new NFL kickoff rule.
So I honestly was super busy today. I didn't even really get to see a ton of it, or I saw the basic premise, but I didn't really dive into the details all that much.
Yeah, the only thing I saw was the fight is July 20th. The thing I saw is it gives a lot more opportunity to the returners, where if you have a good returner, he's going to make a big difference. Like Breece Hall, you need a lot more space to work with, a lot more time to return it, which will make things interesting. And that's all I really saw. I've been busy. I've been trying to breathe again, man, trying to be hydrated. So that's all I've been working on.
Yeah. Let's see.
And did I see? Yes, corn is always a good time. Definitely enjoying them. And our last comment of the night: I just don't trust his coaching staff. All talk and no results.
Oscar, dude, I'd probably say you, man, because you've been supporting like every stream I've done.
See, no, you can't see. Ian, I'm going to warn you. The right answer for this is I like you all equally, because within 5 minutes you're going to have Big Bird in here attacking you. It's just going to get ugly. So
I haven't seen Big Bird.
You will. I guarantee next stream they're all going to attack now, because now he set you up. He completely set you up.
I do love them all.
Look.
But Oscar has been here since the beginning. And he's the first one I noticed.
See, this is what you've done. Elmo is now heartbroken because of this. I knew it. Elmo is not tickled. All right, thank you guys for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. So stay tuned. Every Monday or Tuesday, we're either on our channel, on this channel, or on Ian's channel. We appreciate all the support, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, thanks, guys.